Today on Switch to Linux, we're going to talk about Digital Independence Day and getting a little bit behind this movement. And who knows, is this something will go all over the whole world? It started in Germany. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Thanks for checking out this video by Switch to Linux. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. Leave us a like and a comment down below. Of course, we do like talking about digital independence and self-hosting and things like that, where we have control over our devices, whether that be our computers, where I'm running Linux on everything around here, or our phones, where I run Lineage or Graphene OS, or even just Raspberry Pis to set up boxes where I can watch media content without having streaming services or things like that. And there's even programs that allows you to add your music collections in and have a version of Spotify without actually having to work with Spotify, as it has become a little bit more controversial over the years. But of course, in EU, there's a lot of discussion on this front, mostly because a lot of the countries are concerned about United States owning access to their data. And that's not just because of the current president. A lot of the groundwork for the digital independence that EU has been talking about started under the previous administration as well. So this is not a partisan issue. It's an issue that people in Europe do not often want to be over-reliant on US-based companies, because that's where the data has its ownership. And the reality is, a lot of the services the average person needs, you can self-host or at least have better options that are not tied to big tech. And so this is an article that was written a couple weeks ago in It's FOSS, but I wanted to talk about it today just because I'm recording this on March 1st. And what this is an organization is doing is they are saying the first Sunday of every month, they're dedicating it as a time for you to spend some time in figuring out how you can have a little bit more digital independence in your life. And so this is a really good and really noble goal. And so I kind of want to talk about it. So this is Digital Independence Day, or is it Die Day in Dutch or German? I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm one of these pesky little Americans. I passed Geography 101 in college with flying colors. And I do actually know a lot more about geography than I think most people do. But I'm not an expert over what's going on in Germany. So this is where it was launched. And ultimately, this is a monthly movement encouraging people to ditch big tech services and switch to privacy-respecting alternatives. And I got to think about this. And, I look at my life over the last decade since I've been using Linux, and I have really captured every bit of digital sovereignty. I mean, I got nothing that goes to big tech. I mean, obviously we do the videos here on YouTube, among other places, but the reality is that I use Nextcloud to do all my contact syncing and things like that. All of that kind of stuff is done on Nextcloud, on my own servers. I control it. It's encrypted. I mean, it's not, I'm renting out the servers, to be clear about that. But that's really the thing about self-hosting. If you have an office infrastructure where you can host a lot of this stuff, you can do it yourself from home without a problem. In my case, I do put a number of them on the clouds, whether that's Linode or DigitalOcean or things like that. But again, I have encrypted my Nextcloud instance, so the data in there is encrypted when I put it up there. And there is not a big tech company that's collecting and harvesting and sharing that data. And that really is the importance that I take. But what they're doing here is, this started with Save Social and Chaos Computer Club last year. And the German author Mark Uwe Kling delivered a launch speech calling on people to reclaim social media and personal communications from corporate monopolies. And I am all about that. So what makes DI Day different than other digital rights campaigns is that it is recurring. It happens the first Sunday of every month, which of course just happened yesterday when this is released, or today when I'm recording it. And it gives you things to think about, and they're actually putting up a website which has a lot of ideas. They have some groups, like there's a group hosting de-Google your phone sessions. Others are running workshops on Nextcloud and Linux. These are like local workshops over in Germany, but they also have a recipes page allowing people to move from big tech. And so this site is German, but I'm just translating it, just utilizing the current modern features inside of Firefox here. And I went down here and they have the exchange recipes showing you quickly implementing ways to say goodbye to big tech. Is what they're doing. So they have a number of these, and I was looking through this, and I've actually done most of these over my last decade journey. First is Windows to Linux Mint, and here's what one of these articles looks like. So mint a la carte with cinnamon flavor. So over here, it kind of walks about what you need. You need a USB flash drive, at least 8 gigabytes. You need a Linux Mint download. You need Etcher or Rufus. Some other means to prepare your stick. You need a system to prepare the ingredients. Of course, this is the operating system running Etcher or Rufus. And curiosity instead of fear. There you go. So you can prepare it. Now, again, with Linux Mint, though, you can actually test this out on that live stick without actually installing anything over your computer. You can even buy an external hard drive and install that to the external hard drive. And you can plug that hard drive in, run your entire computer exactly off of Linux, or you can pull that thing out and continue to run it on Windows while you make that transition. In reality, that is how I made a transition. Is I had one of my computers was running Windows 8, although that was mostly just there to watch videos or listen to stuff or research things. So I threw an Ubuntu computer in there, and it worked great. And it's like no problems. It was totally awesome. Now I used to distro hop that, but I kind of landed on Endeavor and just kind of stuck with that as my media PC now. Well, I maintained my Windows 7 computer with all my client work, so I didn't skip a beat, but I had a laptop also running Linux Mint that I was also doing some of my development work on. So it's like if I had a big push, okay, great, let's use the Windows computer because I was used to the workflow. If I got a little bit of more time on this project, let's use Linux Mint to see how I can transition everything over. And I'm happy to report that after a few years doing that, I'd say about 3 or 4 years doing that, I transitioned everything 100% to Linux. And then I added other cool tools like my own self-hosted router with software on hardware that I control. And I added a NAS to facilitate the transfer of files between my entire home network and the ability to watch movies or listen to music or things on any computer on the network with that one central NAS computer. I put it on different laptops. I played around with emulation systems on Raspberry Pi and just a number of other cool factors that I did just by experimenting with this to get started. And really, this is kind of walking through how you're doing it, all set up in kind of like a recipe type mode. They have other things like Big Tech Maps to OpenStreetMaps. This is one that here in the States, at least, OpenStreetMaps is just not as robust as it could be. I use this in my phone, my offline maps. I'm familiar with it. It's a sad reality as I am a full-time live on the road person. Google Maps, unfortunately, still is the king of this area. Now, I don't use Google Maps logged in. I use it on an isolated browser. I use it in a way that prevents sharing of information not tied to me, but I still do use that for a number of things. Where OpenStreetMaps definitely shines, especially using OSM and on the phone, the offline trails. As I'm hiking through national parks or national monuments and things like that, nearly every trail out there is on OpenStreetMaps. And so you can see those, you can see what the various trails are around there. There's a lot of cool things you can do. Microsoft to LibreOffice, of course, I made that change complete when I went from my Windows computer still running my, I think I had Office 2010 on there. And then, no, Office 2007. I had Office 2007 on my Windows computer. And then, of course, as I moved that computer, the backup computer over to Linux Mint, I did do LibreOffice, and now I'm 100% full LibreOffice. PayPal to Wero. I've never heard of Wero, so this will be something I'm going to be researching soon. Chrome to Firefox. I've never actually, jokes on them, I've never actually used Chrome. I mean, I've had it installed on computers to test websites, but I've never actually used Chrome. I don't think I have any distros, or I don't have anything in production that even has Chrome installed on it. Unless you include that Windows Surface computer that I might boot up every 6 months just to make sure it still functions. I don't know. I use Chromium for some things, of course. Independent Gmail to independent mail. Again, I've never used Gmail, never had a Gmail account outside of the when I did work with a startup company for an ed tech startup. They were using Google backend infrastructure, so obviously I had that email for that company was tied to Gmail. But as far as me personally, I've never had a personal Gmail account. Amazon to bookstore, this is an interesting one. They're kind of talking about shifting from buying everything on Amazon to checking out your local bookstores. I'll point out, as an author, there are also a number of much smaller, more independent bookstores you can order things on that are better than continuing to empower Amazon. And in our current world where nearly every book is printed the exact same way on the exact same printers, it makes sense. Like, you don't have to buy things on Amazon. You can get the exact same book printed on the exact same printers, ordering from a number of different places. Now, if anybody is out there as an author, I will tell you, please, please, please do not distribute your books exclusively through Amazon. I know if you're doing the KDP Select, they really want you to have that exclusivity. I will encourage you, do not put your books exclusively on Amazon. Put them on some other source and on Amazon to get the best of both worlds. That's a video for a different day. Google, the other search engines. I, of course, made that switch away from Google a long, long time ago. And I will never buy Amsoil. That's really what made me switch. This was going back 15 years ago. I did a work for a client who is an Amsoil dealer. And so I was still using Google, and he's like, oh yeah, here's the Amsoil stuff, and put the Amsoil links on the page. I'd do that. And then there's something about that company, man. They were just like following me around the internet like some evil stalker. Like, open up my window in the morning. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Well, buy Amsoil. You're like, ah. So literally Amsoil, I will never buy it. I will never use it because of how they stalk me on the internet. But that is what got me to look into alternative search engines. So that's literally what happened. I've been using alternative search engines for a long time too. WhatsApp to Signal. I've never actually used WhatsApp. I have had Signal on a phone in the past, but I do not use Signal at these days. I mostly don't do a lot of text communication. And then X to Mastodon. Okay, that's one that I am primarily on X. I was on a Fostodon instance. Of course, the Fostodon people are crazy psychopaths, and they booted me off for something. They just didn't like my politics or something. Even though I'm not a particularly overtly political channel, I kind of talk the way it is, how you see it, which means sometimes you have to support what's going on in the red world, and sometimes you have to support what's going on in the blue world. But they had an anaphylactic shock to me praising something that Trump had done years ago, and I can't have that. And so, yeah, I'm not really on Mastodon. I don't really have an interest to go to that dumpster fire these days. But I don't know. Maybe there's a channel out there that will accept somebody like me in the FOSS world. I'll hint, it's not Fostodon. Don't support those people. But that is what DI Day is trying to do. It is a really fascinating approach, and I do like their particular stances here. So I wanted to go ahead and leave that with you so you can have a look at this. It's di.day is their main website. And of course, you will need to translate that into English, but they have some really cool tips that you can look at and start considering how to maintain digital independence. And everybody needs to maintain digital independence in your life. Even if you are forced to use big tech companies like Microsoft or Google or Apple, it is very wise of you to have an independence platform, have everything in those accounts, somewhere not in those accounts. So if they suddenly lock you out one day, you don't lose everything. Make sure that you are looking at those alternatives. With that, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.